Mr. Ron Parsons, Director of You Can Lead, a division of Southwestern Consulting, is joining us today. Ron is an educator of 35 years and was director of the Danvers High School Band for 33 years. He transformed the band program from a small community group of 30 students into a large nationally recognized organization with over 150 members. They performed for a presidential inauguration, the Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade in 2001, 2006, and 2010, the 70th and 75th anniversaries commemorating the attacks on Pearl Harbor, and other prestigious events across the United States. Ron is a UMass alumnus, earning both his bachelor's and master's degrees in education from UMass Lowell. Ron and wife Judy of 33 years are the proud parents of 2 adult boys who now are on the other side of their college years. An accomplished educator and a proven leader, Ron dedicates his time to mentoring students, preparing the next generation for leadership roles. His leadership and mentorship program has served as a model for other professional groups and organizations. Ron is recognized by School Band and Orchestra magazine as one of the top 50 directors in the United States, and by the Salem News as one of the top 100 leaders who make a difference in Essex County. Without further ado, please welcome Ron Parsons, today providing our keynote speech regarding the 5 changes of college.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to be the first to congratulate you on reaching this milestone. This is an exciting time as your family begins this next chapter in life. 10 years ago, my wife and I packed up a minivan and we headed west. We were bringing our first son to college. We helped him move in, we helped him set up his dorm and said goodbye. And the ride home that afternoon, I remember as being quiet. My wife and I didn't talk much, but we were thinking the same things. Where did the years go? How quickly that little boy grew up. And we're thinking about all the things we had done together as a family and all the family traditions that we had. One of those traditions was when our boys were little, we would always read them a bedtime story. And before we turned out the light, we would always say, "Love you, sweet dreams, see you in the morning." We got home that evening, we had dinner, and later that night we went to bed. In the middle of the night, my wife got a text alert. She got a text message. My wife got up to look at the phone. I said, "Who is that?" She said, "It's our son, Ronnie." I said, "Is everything okay? Is he all right?" She went, "Yeah." I said, "What is he saying?" He sent us a text and it says, "Mom, Dad, love you, sweet dreams, see you in the morning." And my wife cried. If this is your first child going off to college this year, you are in for a change. 3 years later, we packed up the minivan again, and this time we headed north. We were bringing our last son to college. Once again, we helped him move in, helped him set up his dorm, and said goodbye. And once again, the ride home was quiet. And we were thinking the same things, how the years had flown by. But when we got home that evening, the house seemed different, quiet, seemed more empty. And before we went to bed, my wife walked around the house and walked into my son's room and said, "Ron, come here, you've got to see this." So I walked into my son's room, and there on the bed, my son had left my wife and I a gift. It was a blanket. It was stretched out across his bed, and the blanket was embroidered. In the embroidery said, "Mom, Dad, love you, sweet dreams, see you in the morning." And my wife cried again. If this is your last child going to college this year, you are really in for a change. And what we came to understand is that college is a time of change. It's a time of change for them, and it's a time of change for your family. And if you'll allow me this morning for the next few minutes, I would like to share with you and suggest 5 big ideas, 5 changes for you and for them that if you're willing to embrace, will help set the stage for an incredible experience here at UMass Dartmouth. I understand for some of you, this will be easy. This won't be a problem. There are people who like change, they embrace change, but most of us, if we're honest, we don't like change. Change can be hard. Change can be difficult. Change can be uncomfortable. It's not always easy. Think about this. If you have dinner together as a family, how many of you have assigned seating at the dining room table? Now, it's really not assigned seating, but how many of you know exactly where everyone sits? Just for fun, the first time they come home from college and you have dinner together as a family, just sit where they sit and watch their expression. Let me see if I can show you what change is going to feel like this year. Now, to do this, I need everybody's participation. Everybody going to help. All you have to do is put your hands up like this. Now, clasp your hands together in front of you like this and look down at your thumbs. How many of you have the right thumb on top of the left thumb? How many of you have the left thumb on top of the right thumb? How many of you have no clue which thumb's on top? Okay, well, that's a topic for a different day. Hands up again. Now clasp them together again. Look down at your thumbs again. How many of you have the right thumb on top, the same thumb on top? Now, by the way, there is no right way or wrong way to do this, but there is a way that you're most comfortable. Now, let me see if I can show you what change will feel like. Hands up one more time. This time, I'm going to say together. When I say together, clasp your hands together. When I say apart, take them apart. I'm going to do that 2 times. The third time, I'm simply going to say switch. And on the third time, I'd like you to clasp your hands together in front of you, but this time, put the opposite thumb on top. Are you ready? Here we go. Together, apart. Together, apart. Switch. Ooh. Parents, your children have been in school for the past 12 years and they know how to do school. For the last 17 or 18 years, you have lived with your son, you have lived with your daughter, and you know how to do family. I'm simply suggesting today that if you want to have a great year this year, there are 5 changes that you will need to embrace. Let me give you the first change. Think of their life in college as a series of choices. Now, here's the change. They get to make the choices, and all of their choices will have consequences, and they get to live with the consequences. When our children are little, our role is much like that of a dictator. Eat your vegetables, brush your teeth, put on your seatbelt, go to bed. But as they got older, it didn't quite work like that. We became more of a manager. Have you done your homework? Did you call your boss? Have you started working on your college essay yet? Well, today, parents, families, I would like to congratulate you. As of today, you are now promoted. You are officially promoted to the role of consultant. You can call your son and daughter and ask them if they're eating their vegetables, and they'll say yes, and it has nothing to do with reality. They have to choose to get up for class in the morning. Parents, you can call them every day at 7:30 a.m. to make sure they're up for class, but this is a bad idea. See, they know your number and they will block you. My son told me this story. His freshman year, his roommate. Well, his roommate's mom would call every day to check up on him and to see how he was doing. And if he was in class, he would have to call his mom back to check in. Well, college got busy, as college will for every freshman, and a few days went by where he didn't call his mom. And my son had a ground floor dorm that year, and early one Saturday morning, while they were asleep, there was a knock on the window. It was his roommate's mom. And she proceeded to ask him, what have you been doing? Well, I'm so worried about you. Why haven't you called? What's going on? And in the middle of the story, my son went to me like this. He went, Dad, please don't ever. I said, don't worry. See, in high school, their day was managed and dictated by bells. Go to class, the bell rings. Go to your next class, and they would get homework that was due the next day. Now, they may have 2 classes on Monday, 3 on Tuesday. They might have an 8 o'clock class on Saturday morning, and they may get homework due the next class 2 weeks from now, mid-semester. See, they have to choose when to get up. They have to choose when to go to bed. They have to choose what to eat, choose to do their laundry. They have to choose to get involved. They have to choose to go to class and choose to do their work, and they have to live with the consequences. To illustrate this, I would like to share this very short story with you called, Who Am I? The story begins and ends with a question. Who am I? I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or heaviest burden. I will push you onward to success or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Half the things you do, you might just as well turn them over to me and I'll be able to do them quickly and correctly. I'm easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great individuals, and alas, of all failures as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I am not a machine, though I work with all the precision of a machine, plus the intelligence of a human. You may run me for profit or run me for ruin. Makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? I am habit. See, habits are the things that we do repeatedly. Some habits are good, exercising regularly, planning ahead. Some are bad, thinking negatively, blaming others. Some don't really matter. Take a shower at night, eating yogurt with a fork. The good news is we're all stronger than our habits. We can always change them and make them better, but it's not always easy. It is always possible. I encourage students to always consider these three things as they make choices in college. Number one, be proactive. Take responsibility for your life. Number two, begin with the end in mind. Why are you here? Where do you want to be in 4 years? What do you want to experience and what do you want to accomplish? And number three, put first things first. Prioritize and do the most important things first. See, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. If they constantly choose to go to class, it becomes a habit. If they choose to prioritize their time to get their work done on time, it becomes a habit. If they choose to eat healthy and exercise, it becomes a habit. Our habits can make us or break us. We become what we repeatedly do. Samuel Smiles put it like this: sow a thought and you reap an act. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. Why do I share this with students as they prepare to start the journey called college? The choices they make and the habits they form now most likely will be the ones they take in life when they graduate. We become what we repeatedly do. Life is a series of choices. They have to make them. And the choices they make will determine the experience that they will have. Let me give you the second change. This has to do with their desire. Every year, I'll ask incoming freshmen this question: do you want to have a great year? And the answer is always the same. As a matter of fact, in 25 years, I've never had anybody go to me like this: well, Ron, I'm really glad you asked me that question. I've thought long and hard about this, and I would really like to have a bad year. See, everybody wants to have a great year, but then I ask them another question. Well, how are you going to do that? What's going to make it a great year? And they don't always have an answer for that. In high school, a great year might have been defined by great grades. They got an A in a test, they bring it home, you say they're doing great, they're having a great year. Or by being in the band, or performing in theater, or making it onto the varsity team. And chances are they were with the same group of people for many years. Now they're going from an environment where they knew everybody and everybody knew them to a place where they don't know many people and most people don't know them. Here's the change. They will have a great year as they build great friendships. For some, this will be easy. There's always the perky student who walks into a room and says, "Hi, I want to meet you all." But for others, it's a little harder because of the perception of risk. What if I'm a student this semester and I see a student that I want to meet, a professor who wrote the textbook I'm using? Or if I see the school president or the provost on campus and I go up to them and say, "Hi, my name is Ron," and they kill me. Now, I'm not talking about physical death, but I'm talking about the death that students fear worse than that: social death. We look at someone who is different than us and say, "I can't introduce myself to them," or "what if they don't like me?" We tend to judge people by what they look like, and we imagine the outcome based on our perception. But often our perception of risk is very, very high when the reality of risk is really low. The challenge is we have a perception of risk and make our judgments based on our observations. My sophomore year in college, first semester, Economics 101, first day of class. We all showed up to class and sat down. No professor. A couple of minutes went by, still no professor. Well, after a few minutes, students in the class began to make comments, began to talk. And as time went by, the comments got a little more courageous and much more critical. And about 10 minutes into the class, a student sitting in the middle of the class got up, he hadn't said anything the whole class, got up and walked to the front of them and turned around and faced us and said, "Good morning, I'm Dr. Brown and I am your economics professor." See, Dr. Brown looked very young and he knew it. And he would use that to his advantage for his first day of class. And within a few short minutes, he had learned all the personalities in the room. There are many things we don't know and can't tell by observing people. There are only things we can learn by having a conversation. On campus, I once met this young lady that I really wanted to meet. So I got up the courage to start talking to her. And as we started talking, we found that we had a few things in common. So we continued talking. As the conversation unfolded, we found we had a lot more things in common. And then the commonalities began to get a little bizarre. Well, turns out her mother grew up with my father, and my father grew up with her mother, and our grandparents worked together and had actually emigrated from the same town in the same country to the United States. Well, obviously, we made a very strong connection that day because 33 years later, I'm still happily married to that young lady. As they reach out and have conversation, they will find things in common and make connections with others and develop new friendships and new relationships. And as they do this, they will find that the world keeps getting smaller and smaller. My senior year in college, I went out to do my student teaching, and I had a cooperating teacher. And one day my cooperating teacher and I were sitting down, just sharing some of our personal life together. And in the course of the conversation, I just happened to mention that my grandfather lived in Everett. And my cooperating teacher went like this. He went, "Huh, my grandfather lived in Everett." I said, "Well, my grandfather lived on Freeman Ave." And he said, "My grandfather lived on Freeman Ave." I said, "My grandfather was a carpenter who worked in Chelsea." And he said, "My grandfather was a carpenter that worked in Chelsea too." And come to find out that his grandfather had emigrated from Greece and he didn't speak any English, and he got a job on a construction job in Chelsea, and my grandfather was his foreman and took him under his wing and helped him learn to speak English and helped him learn the ropes. And then my cooperating teacher said this. He said, "Wow, 2 generations later, I get to pay back your family for what your family did for mine." And we became lifelong friends. They will have a great year as they reach out and talk to people and make new friends. And parents, your conversation with them will change too. Our oldest son went to college. First month, we didn't hear from him at all. Finally, my wife said, "Do you think he's okay?" And I said, "Well, I'm sure he's okay." She says, "Well, how do you know?" I said, "Well, they would have called us to take the body." And when he finally did call, we had a whole list of questions. What's going on? How are you doing? How are your classes? Who are your friends? What have you been up to? And in the middle of the conversation, my son went like this. He went, "Mom, I got to go. I got to get ready for my next class." See, for the last 17 or 18 years, they've been an integral part of your family, helping with homework, going to concert, going to games, having dinner together. And what we learned was this. What we saw as gathering information, he saw as getting interrogated. So what we learned to do when he called is to simply share what was going on in our lives. And as we listened more and asked less, he began to share. And he began to tell us about his friends and about the activities he was involved with and about his classes. And we began to understand that he was getting connected and doing well. Why do I spend so much time talking about friendships and relationships? Like it or not, believe it or not, 12 months from now, your son or your daughter will become a lot like the people they choose to hang around with. They will be influenced by their friends. Can I show you how easily we're influenced? All you have to do is do exactly what I say. Are you ready? Here we go. Lean back, lean forward. Lean back, lean forward, go to your right. You see what happens? We're influenced by actions. Let's try one more. This is easy. All you have to do is clap when I say clap. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3. You see how easy it is? We can be influenced by our actions. Parents, if they come to college to study hard and want to get good grades and get involved and do well, they will choose friends who are like-minded. If they come to college and all they want to do is party all the time, they will choose friends who are like-minded. Life is a series of choices. They have to make them. A great year at college is defined by their friends, and they have to choose them. Let me give you the third change. The third change is significant because this relates to why they are here. In high school, education is defined as a classroom event. Go to class, bell rings, go to the next class. It's a very structured routine. In college, education is defined as a lifetime event. They will get an education in the classroom, but they'll also get an education in the dorm. They'll get an education as they have to be at an 8 o'clock class in a snowstorm. Here's the change. They will get an education as they learn to solve their own problems. And parents, it's no longer your job to solve their problems. Sometime this fall, some of you may get a call that goes something like this. Mom, Dad, they have given me the world's worst roommate. And by the way, if you don't get a call like this, there's a reason for it. It's because your son or daughter is the world's worst roommate and they've given them to somebody else. Just kidding. And your first reaction might be like ours. Get me the dean. We will get you a new roommate. We will solve this problem. Let me see if I can illustrate the problem with this. Imagine you're at work and you have a coworker that you don't like. You don't get along with them. They're smelly. They talk loud, they eat smelly food, they play loud music, and you just don't get along with them. So you do the most logical thing you can think of. You call your mom. And then you ask your mom to call your boss. Do you see the problem with this? My son was on campus freshman year. He got permission to have a job off campus. So he needed a vehicle to get there to his off-campus job. So he got permission from the university to have a car on campus. So he called us and told us that, well, he didn't own a car at the time, so we gave him the minivan. And as you can imagine, as time went by, his friends saw the minivan and they started making fun of the minivan. And they started making fun of him in the minivan. So here's what he did. He said to them, you know, you can make fun of my minivan, but this thing is really tricked out. I've put a very high-end sound system in this. It's got an incredible stereo system in it. I even had heated seats and heated carpets put in. So one night they went out to get a pizza, and it was a cold night. And first thing he did was crank up the radio really loud. So what do you think? And they're all going, wow, this is awesome. That is incredible sound. And these seats, they're so warm. This van is great. They ended up nicknaming the van the Swagger Wagon because the van had attitude. Now, let me tell you something about the minivan. There was no high-end stereo system in that. It was the same radio that it came with, and there weren't any heated seats. Now, my son could have called us and said, Mom, Dad, I'm getting made fun of with the minivan. You need to get me a car. I need to have a car on campus. But he didn't. He solved his own problem. One summer break, my friend Dana and I decided we were going to backpack across Europe. Now, Dana's grandmother lived in England, so Dana's father asked if we wouldn't mind, at the end of our trip, would you mind ending your trip in England, visiting Dana's grandmother, and then bringing her back to the States with you because she's never been on a plane and we'd like her to visit the United States. So we did. We got to Dana's grandmother, Mrs. D, and Mrs. D had decided she was going to bring her friend with her named Lizzie. Now, Lizzie lived in a small town, had never been to a big city or ever been on a plane. Well, we got to the airport that day and we were checking in and we were just about done checking in. And suddenly the ticket agent said, Lizzie, we're not going to be able to let you get on the plane. And I went, huh? And the ticket agent went on to explain that in addition to a valid passport, British citizens at the time needed to have a visa. So now what do we do? Now, by the way, this happened back in the 80s. So this is BG, before Google and before cell phones. So what we decided to do was we were all checked in except for Lizzie. So Dana took Mrs. D as grandmom and they went to the gate. And I went with Lizzie to the information desk and we explained the situation. So what we learned was we needed to get her a visa from the embassy, and the embassy was in London. So we called the embassy, but the embassy couldn't see her that afternoon, but we got her an appointment for 9 o'clock the next morning. So now we went back to the ticket agent and we rescheduled her flight for the next day, same time, which was an afternoon flight, then back to the information counter. And then we tried to figure out, and we had to get some help, and we found a hotel that was right near the embassy and booked her a room. Then we called the cab company, and the cab company explained the situation to them. We needed a cab that afternoon to get to the hotel, and we would need another cab the next morning to get it to the embassy. So when the cab driver arrived at the airport, he came in and talked to us and said, look, I've heard the whole situation. Here's what I'm going to do. I will take her to the hotel and make sure she gets checked in, and I will pick her up tomorrow morning and bring it to the embassy and make sure she gets her visa, and I will bring it to the airport. Great. And as she was getting into the cab and leaving, I heard an announcement come over the terminal, and it was last call for boarding for my flight. My flight was across the terminal. Now I had to turn and run and sprint. I was jumping over suitcases, zigzagging around people, and I was the last person to board the flight before they close the door. Here's the point of the story. By the way, Lizzie made it to the United States the next afternoon. And here's the point of the story. I got an education as I had to solve my own problem. Life is a series of choices. They have to make them. A great year at college is defined by their friends, and they have to choose them. Education is a process of learning to solve their own problems. Now, here's the fourth change. This may be the most countercultural change. When they're in college, professors may assign a group project. Well, some in that group will be team players. Some will want to take charge. Some will try to make it all about them, my way or the highway, and some won't do their part. Or maybe their roommate likes classic rock and they like polka music. Maybe they like it quiet when they study and their roommate likes to have music on. Maybe they want to sleep while their roommate wants to play video games. Here's the change. They will be successful as they learn to work well with other people. They will have to work well with their professors. They will have to work with their classmates. They will have to learn to work well with their roommates. And they will have to learn to work with you and you with them. Here's what's going to happen. They'll come home for Thanksgiving break and they may be texting their friends. And you might be wondering, I wonder if he remembers our curfew. In college, they don't have a curfew. You know what they do if they want to get a pizza at 2 a.m.? They get a pizza at 2 a.m. And if you're not careful, you'll create pressure and a point of conflict. Here's the reality. They are growing up and gaining independence, and you will have to treat each other like adults. And finally, they will have to learn to work with the university. Some of your young adults are going to have problems. It happens every year at every university. Maybe when they get to the room, something isn't cleaned or something isn't repaired, something's missing or broken. Sometimes things happen, but I'm here to tell you, you, your son, your daughter, and the school all want the same exact thing. They want your child to succeed, and they will work at trying to fix it as best they can. Life is a series of choices. They have to make them. A great year at college is defined by their friends. They have to choose them. Education is a process of learning to solve their own problems, and success will come as they learn to work well with others. Parents, you've watched them grow up and you have a concept of your son or your daughter. Maybe they're good at music. Maybe they're good at athletics or at science or writing, or maybe they're just good socially. Here's the great thing. No one knows them yet. No one knows what to expect of them. College is a time when students can reinvent themselves, maybe view themselves different and reach out and try new things that they have never done before or ever dreamed possible. Success in college doesn't just depend on their history and prior abilities. Success is about how they think about themselves, their motivation to pursue new possibilities, and the resources they're willing to find and use. How we think affects how we act, what we're willing to do, and what we expect. And college is a time that you need to look at them differently. Look beyond your concept of who they are. It's an opportunity to help build and foster a vision of who they are becoming, even more than you ever dreamed possible. Encourage them to try new things, to seek out and access the many resources that UMass Dartmouth has to offer. Parents, please don't miss this. Although they are coming to UMass Dartmouth on their own, they are not alone. Here's the beauty of this. There are people, programs, and resources available to them that they don't even know exist yet. They need to be willing to seek out and use the many resources available to them. They need to be willing to think different about themselves and try new things. And everyone wants the same thing for them, to grow and succeed. College is a time to take risks and step out of their comfort zone. Parents, you may get a call that goes something like this. Mom, Dad, I won't be home for spring break this year. I'm going on an alternative break. See, there's a group of us going to Romania to work in an orphanage. Life is a series of choices. They have to make them. A great year at college is defined by their friends, and they have to choose them. Education is a process of learning to solve their own problems, and success will come as they learn to work well with others. And college is a time of reinvention to pursue possibilities and try new things. As they choose to try new things and step out of their comfort zone and take risks, they may also learn to be resilient. Resiliency is that ability to bounce back when things don't go quite as planned. I've spent a lot of time working with students when I taught high school and helping students make the transition to college. And I always shared with students before they left their senior year, I shared with them what I call the 5 rights of resiliency. And I'd like to share those with you today. Number 1, talk right. Talk confident and talk positive about yourself and be patient and forgiving of yourself. Walk right. Those times when you feel insecure or feel down, hold your head high and walk confidently and walk a little quicker. How you choose to act affects your attitude. See right. We always tend to compare our weaknesses with somebody else's strengths. But the reality is we all have different strengths. You don't need to be the best. You need to be your best. Eat right. Learn what to feed your brain. Your brain is the ultimate video recorder. Choose what you feed your brain. Find out what you're good at and feed it. Read about it. Watch experts at it. Learn from those who can do it better than you. Practice it. Become great at what you're good at. And finally, treat right. We live in a society that is great at analyzing things and finding what's wrong with things. Be a good finder. Catch people doing right. Catch people doing right and let them know. Invest in someone. Encourage someone. Help someone else. As you take the focus off of you and help others, you benefit the most. Our time this morning is almost complete, and I would like to leave you with a story. It's a story about a student that I had, a young man. Now, for 35 years, I was a band director, and part of my responsibility was to direct all the elementary, middle school, and high school bands in our community. So I met Nick when he was going into the 4th grade. Nick wanted to learn how to play the trumpet, so he joined the elementary band, and I taught Nick how to play the trumpet. Nick went all the way through elementary school. He continued playing the trumpet through middle school. He continued all the way through high school. And in high school, Nick was part of the concert band and the jazz band and the marching band. He did field shows with us and parades. Here's what I haven't told you about Nick. See, Nick had tremendous challenges. Nick was born with muscular dystrophy, and he was confined to a wheelchair from age 6. And his brother was born with the same disease, and he was confined to a wheelchair from age 5. And when Nick was very young, his mom and dad both passed away from the same disease. And a family in our community adopted both of these boys. Now, when Nick was in high school, he was one of the most resourceful and ambitious students I've had, with all the challenges that this young man faced. Matter of fact, in high school, so he could be part of the marching band, he had his dad rig up a harness so he could balance his trumpet on one hand and drive his motorized wheelchair with the left hand and do all the field shows with us. Nick traveled with us to Disney World and performed in Disney. He performed with us at a presidential inauguration in Washington, D.C. Why do I tell you this story? Nick had tremendous challenges. And by the way, after high school, it didn't end there. Nick decided that summer he wanted to get his driver's license. Nick got his driver's license. And they had a van specially made for Nick, so the back of the van would fold down into a ramp. He could drive up into the minivan, lock his chair in, and drive with his hands. Nick went to college that fall and got a degree in computer science and graduated. And he got a job as an IT specialist for a college. In high school, when Nick's friends wanted a computer, they didn't buy a computer, they ordered one from Nick. Nick bought all the parts and built them all powerful gaming computers. Why do I tell you about Nick? Nick had tremendous challenges, but he treated every obstacle as a new opportunity. I knew Nick for 8 years, and I never once heard him complain. I never heard him say the words, "I can't." I was talking to Nick some years later, and I will never forget what he said to me. He said, people have looked at me my whole life and told me that I can't. I decided that I would always say, then how can I? And then I would find a way and do the best I could. There may come a time this year when your son or daughter feels like they can't. They may face challenges this year that they haven't faced before. Maybe they will have a difficult class and get a grade less than what they're used to. College isn't about starting, it's about finishing, and finishing to the best of their ability. As your son and daughter prepare for college and their adventure at UMass Dartmouth, my hope is that they will make good choices, build good friendships that will last a lifetime, participate in their own education, figure out a way to work well with others, try new things, and think bigger than they've ever thought before. Thank you all for allowing me to share with you today, and I wish you and your young adults and your family a great experience as you begin this adventure at UMass Dartmouth.